so many things for us to discuss today, Luke. Let's start with the Hurricanes, shall we?
Sure.
You and I have talked about this. I think we all expected them to be good. 14 games into the season, and I know it is a relatively small sample size. I think they're better than good. What's your read on this group at the 1/6 mark of 1/7 mark of the season?
Yeah, I thought the hand wringing over them missing the playoffs was a little excessive. My feeling on this team was that the big difference between this year and the last few years, at least kind of since COVID, when they were, had sort of peaked in that little window to contend, was that the variance was going to be higher, that this was a team that, could potentially not be as good as the last few years. Maybe it would even be better. And I think what you're seeing and what you've seen so far is the sort of best case of might be better. If you're scoring at least 4 goals a game, doesn't matter that Freddie's on sabbatical again. If you add a guy like Jack Roslovic, who's just a finisher, and look, I'll be honest, of all of their offseason acquisitions, Roslovic was the one that maybe impressed me least. But this guy has been exactly what the Hurricanes needed. And the counterfactual that I would offer up to you is, on a team that has a ton of guys who make plays, what would this team have looked like the last 2 years using the roster and salary and lineup spot that Teuvo Teravainen occupied on a guy like Roslovic, who's maybe not as good an overall player as Teravainen, but is stronger in the one area where Teravainen wasn't. And look, I love Turbo as a player. I love him as a guy. I loved his sense of humor, delightfully morose. But they needed a guy like Jack Roslovic a lot more than they needed another guy like Teuvo Teravainen. So I think, you've seen some tweaks in there that have really sort of helped things fall into place a little bit. A guy like Eric Robinson is a guy who, you heard over the summer that this wasn't the biggest name they signed, but this was a guy who maybe had a lot in common with Jordan Martinook in 2018, a guy who was going to come in and just sort of, fit and do well here, regardless of what he'd done elsewhere before because of the way he plays. I think we've seen that. And I think we still haven't, I don't think, seen the best of William Carrier, who, I'm increasingly looking incorrect in this, but I still think that there's going to be a point in time where he ends up in the top 6 because he is that guy who can go get a puck and make plays and has the skill to play with better players and do some things. Maybe that doesn't happen until the playoffs, but I still think that's a possibility. So when you look at the guys they brought in, they do different things. They're bigger up front, and that's all sort of panned out as expected. Now, if you were to say that Marty Necas was going to be on pace for 140 points, you would probably expect them to be off to a decent start anyway. But they've done it, obviously, with Freddie being hurt. I think the one big question mark about everything they did and the way things have gone, the trend in the NHL right now is to get bigger on defense. And that second pairing, if that's what we're calling it, of Walker and Gostisbehere is not big. That's an area where they did get smaller from Shea and Pesce. So I think that's sort of hanging out there and will hang out there until the postseason as an unanswered question. But I think a lot of what they did and a lot of the things that Eric Tulsky did that were, and I don't mean this in any pejorative way, predictable, because he did the kind of things that the publicly available analytics would suggest would improve your team's shot totals and expected goals and possession and all those things. They've panned out. And so you say, all right, here we are, we're a month into the season. We're a decent chunk in. The sample's small, but it's not tiny. And a lot of the things that we hoped would happen, whether it's Necas or the new guys, have happened. Is it going to be difficult to keep some of this up a little bit? Like, I don't think Marty Necas is going to keep, shooting 35%, but, but that's fine. The little regression there isn't going to hurt anybody, but yeah, my concern, especially after watching the Tampa game, and I know you felt to a degree the same way, was it was going to take a while for all the pieces to fall into place.
It took one game.
That happens. Yeah, that happens. And it literally took 6 hours.
It took one game.
Not even. It was really the next practice.
Yep.
They kind of all got pulling on the rope the same direction and have gone from there. So, you have one bad game in St. Louis where the goaltending doesn't play well. You have 2 games in Colorado and Tampa where your stars got outplayed by the other team's stars, and that's it. That's pretty good for November.
Yeah. I actually think that since the Tampa game, Carolina has played about 20 bad minutes. That's it, 20 bad minutes. They were sloppy against Philly, but they outplayed Philadelphia for the entirety of that game. The 10 minutes they played from the shorthanded goal to the end of the second period in Colorado and the middle of the second period against St. Louis is the only bad stretches they've played. I think if the Hurricanes were smart, and I actually think they have tried this, I would be signing Eric Robinson right now to a contract extension. I am more bullish on his fit here, as well as Roslovic has played. I am more bullish that Eric Robinson is a long-term Hurricane than Jack Roslovic. Let me move on to the football portion of this program. I know the college football playoff rankings came out, and we'll hit that if we have time. Mack Brown and company, they've got 3 games. I think they have 3 games left. They're still looking for, or whatever, I think they have 3 games left. They're still looking for a bowl game. They have to win one more. Where are you on North Carolina and North Carolina State as we wind this season down?
Where am I? I'm anywhere else. There's not a lot of there with either of these teams at this point. I don't find either of their seasons particularly interesting or compelling. As far as I'm concerned, they can both play out the string. If they want to win 6 and go to a bowl game, great. Detroit is lovely this time of year, and I am a
Shreveport. Fan. You don't want to go to Shreveport?
Yeah.
You don't want to go to Birmingham?
Consideration. Yeah. So we don't.
The Military Bowl. Annapolis is lovely.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a little fitting if Mack's second stint in North Carolina started with a Military Bowl and ended with a Military Bowl.
So, yeah.
Annapolis is great. Look, the great thing right now about the state of the ACC in football, the one really nice thing you could say about the ACC in football is that the bad bowls are all still pretty good. You know, so wherever you're.
Thank you, Notre Dame.
Oh yeah, maybe.
That is a thank you to Notre Dame.
Not much else you can thank Notre Dame for, but yeah,
man, we disagree on that.
Look,
I like Notre Dame in the ACC for whatever they are.
I mean, I think it's. I think. Well, it's a whole different discussion. I think the scheduling agreement with Notre Dame has actually been good for the ACC. I think the idea that Notre Dame gets a full vote in ACC affairs is a disgrace, but that is a completely different discussion. But yeah, look, I mean, I don't have a lot to say about State and Carolina football because I don't think there is a lot to say.
Here's the thing about it. It was probably a too broad of a question to frame that way anyway. North Carolina, to me, has not been disappointing. They have been. This has been predictable. North Carolina being bad defensively, horribly bad, but occasionally showing you that they could be good if the planets align. This is North Carolina. NC State, I am baffled that with all of that talent, and the Jolies, the other receivers, Jordan Waters hasn't had a good year, but they've got enough skill position talent. I am baffled that their offense has been, other than the Stanford game, awful. And I don't think the problem is C.J. Bailey. They were awful before, and has anybody seen Casey Concepcion?
Yeah. All right, well, first of all, good self-scouting by you. Those are 2 much better questions / prompts.
Thank you.
About each.
I'm not always good at this.
Yeah, no, it's good to see you getting better. As far as Carolina,
2 turnovers late in the game. I'm 17.
Well, hey, Duke won after turning it over 6 times, or Duke lost after getting 6 turnovers. With UNC, I am a little disappointed because I did think at this point in Mack's tenure, if he was ever going to address some of what are now generational difficulties on defense that might have happened with a new defensive coordinator and some personnel turnover. Obviously, it didn't. I think the epitaph on this UNC season, I think it's already kind of been written, is that Mack probably should have gone out with Drake May. You and I have discussed this before. He would have left the program. He still is going to, but he would have left the program on much sounder footing, on a much more solid foundation. But the fact that he did stay, he was the right person in the right place at the right time to get this team through losing a teammate.
Right.
And the way that Carolina, the team, the players, Mack, the school, the football program has handled Tylee Craft's, terribly sad passing, is a commendation to all of them. They should all be commended. The players have dug in and recommitted to the game and to playing in his honor. Mack has handled the situation with grace and humanity, and I'm not sure there are a ton of college football coaches who would be able to do that, and they've given the community something to rally around in the season when their performance on the field, certainly the low point of the JMU game, has not given them much. So I think that's what we're going to remember. I hope that's what we remember about this season, is how a group of football players and a football program and a coach handled a very difficult situation in a very human and graceful way. But is the program on some kind of upward trajectory where you say, yes, let's have more of this? No. Mack did what he came back to do, right? He re-professionalized this program. He put it on solid footing. It's in better shape. It's not a laughing stock. It's respected. The relationships with the high school coaches in the state have been rebuilt. He regardless of how this ends this year, if this is Mack's last year, he did what he came here to do. And the Tylee Craft stuff, as difficult as that was, I think is a bit of a sort of bonus is the wrong word, but it was good that he was here. For that. As for state,
all right, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there because we are coming up on a break that I can't go past. So I'm going to have. I wish I didn't have to do this, but we're going to have to leave it right there. But your final point on Mack is, fortunate that he was in charge at this time, because I do think that Mack has empathy that we don't often see from college football coaches. He is blessed with that ability to be human, and I just don't think we see enough of that in college football. Luke DeCock, I'm sorry I cut you short, but that's all right. We'll do it again, and I appreciate you bearing with bad questions. But appreciate your time. At Luke DeCock on Twitter. I'll see you at the rink pretty soon.
Yeah, we got you fixed up. That's good. Progress.
Thanks, man.